The title of this story is Unencumbered. He worked for 5 years before he could save enough money for his JAMB form. His salary was good, but his family needed the money. His father was a carpenter. The menial repair work he did was not enough to sustain the family. His elder sister got pregnant at 16. The man responsible for the pregnancy refused to be responsible for the child. This really complicated matters for the family. The less mouths available to be fed, the better. He worked as a gardener, watering plants in 34 houses all over the estate. The money was good, but the responsibility was way more than a 21-year-old could shoulder alone. He had almost given up on getting an education when he got the break he had always longed for. A customer paid him 5,000 naira extra for a good job he did with his avocado plant. It was the extra money he intended to use for his JAMB form. He knew God had a hand in it. He had told God to make a way, or he would have to assume God didn't want him to go to the university. He became born again in the Students' Union Fellowship during his secondary school days. He knew God would prosper whatever he did. But he desired to get an education and become a lawyer. His best friend, the one that led him to Christ, also had the same problem. Poverty was the only thing they had in common apart from Christ. He told his best friend he had gotten money for JAMB. His best friend rejoiced greatly. One of them would be moving upward and directly towards the goal. That would be a great improvement from their previous years. They talked about helping each other out. I will help you work on the gardening business and keep some money for you for education. His friend was such a rare Christian. They were the same age, but his friend's maturity in Christ was light years ahead. They discussed the pros and cons. He introduced his friend to all his customers. The source of income should be kept alive if he was to make it in school. They had worked together for some time, but he did a better job at gardening and earned more. The D-Day came and they decided to go to the JAMB office together. It was about 15 kilometers away from the slum they lived in. The form was 5,000 naira, and all they had was 5,000 naira. They had to walk the distance to and fro. They left home at 5 a.m. praying in the spirit and discussing about this and that as they walked. Suddenly, his friend said, "I wish I were also buying this form and getting admitted into the same school with you. Do you know what the two of us can do in a university? We will turn logic on its head and bring the light of Christ to many." He acknowledged this to be the truth. When they were in high school, they ministered together a lot. The power of God was always evident and mighty. But there they were. Their realities refused to align with their faith. The journey took them 7 hours. They got to the JAMB office at noon. There was a long queue. They queued behind each other. His friend said he needed to experience what it took in preparation for his own JAMB office trip the following year. 1 hour later, they got to the cashier. He was supposed to pay, collect his receipt, and then proceed to the next line for his form. He counted the money. It was 10,000 naira. What? The money had somehow doubled. He paid and gave his friend the 5,000 naira extra to pay for his own form. They felt goose pimples all over. What had just happened? They got to the next line and obtained their JAMB forms. His friend started crying. "Oh God, my God, oh God, my King." He started crying too. How could this have happened? When did it happen? They were together all the way. Nobody gave them a penny. They walked many kilometers and wow. They got the forms. They knew they would get admitted. It was God's desire to grant them admission at the same time. They did. 1 year later, they both set off for the same university to study the same course. The thought of feeding and school fees was far from their mind. Would God start a project and refuse to complete it? They became ministers of the gospel on campus as they desired. Somehow their needs were met, until they got to the final year. 1 week to their final examinations, they were yet to pay their school fees. They had fasted and prayed and praised, nothing. Examination day came, nothing. They went into the examination hall. They didn't have the examination card and receipt to show they had paid. They got booted out. One of them got despondent. How could they have come this far only to be deserted at the last minute? Was it something they did? Have they somehow missed the voice and motive of God? The other one suggested that since they were idle and moping around, perhaps it would be wise to keep themselves occupied. What should they do? The fellowship needed some devotionals. The fellowship's boss was available. They had a higher calling to preach the gospel. Examination and schooling were nothing. Would they have even gotten this far without God? They encouraged each other. Told the driver to take them to the missions office in another city. The mission was in charge of the daily devotional widely used on campus. They got 3,000 copies for free every quarter. They sang hymns and worshipped God all the way to that city. By the time they got there, they were in full worship and kabashing mode. They filled the request form. The storekeeper saw the volume of their request and asked them to come with him. That was strange. They usually fill in the forms, get the devotionals, and distribute on campus without any fanfare. Will they experience another delay here? The storekeeper led them to the manager of the company and introduced them. According to your directives, that those ordering more than 1,000 copies of the devotional should be brought to you, I present Mr. So-and-so and Mr. Such-and-such, students' representatives from this and that university. The manager looked at them. Aren't you guys supposed to be writing examinations? They told the manager their financial challenges and narrated how they decided that instead of moping and griping, they will put themselves to work while glorifying God. The manager was pleasantly impressed. How much is your school fees? The manager asked. They stated the amount. The manager wrote them a check. Wow. They got the 3,000 copies of the devotional and left. They sang and shouted all the way back to school. They will have to receipt for the 3 papers they missed that day, but their circumstances was much better than when they left campus in the morning. They got to school. Many students started shouting. Their classmates were jibber-jabbering. Did you call the dean of the faculty? Did you send an email to the head of department? They couldn't make sense of what they were saying. What happened? The dean and the HOD were caught up in traffic all morning. They couldn't get to campus on time. The invigilators went ahead and distributed the examination questions and answers. Students wrote the examination. The dean arrived. The HOD arrived. The typist had made mistakes while typing the questions. The dean was not there to correct the errors. The HOD was not there to correct the errors. The students had answered the questions based on the questions they saw. The dean cancelled his examination paper. The HOD cancelled his 2 examination papers. They set a date, that is 2 weeks after the general examinations, for a receipt of the cancelled papers for all the students. The students will have to spend extra 2 weeks in school, and they were upset about it. That was why the students thought they had something to do with it. They couldn't believe it. They wouldn't even have to carry over the 3 courses. Jesus. A month later, they graduated with their peers, without a carryover or any form of embarrassment. Many who heard their stories marveled at the wonder-working power of God, the ever-present help in time of need. P.S. They both graduated with good results and were gainfully employed. They still preach the gospel. They are also happily married with children. Glory to God. The end. For more stories like this and information about the ministry, please visit www.Samuel-Wemimo.com. God bless you.